Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for staying with us for the last chat of the day. And thanks to Hello Tomorrow for having us on the stage. My name is Virgile. I trained as an AI engineer, and now I'm an investor for Mubadala Capital, which is the third-party asset manager of Mubadala, the sovereign wealth fund of Abu Dhabi. Since 2016, our venture platform has been quite active in the technology space with over 100 investments across the US, Europe, and Asia. And we're really committed to deep tech, and it's a key pillar of our investment strategy, having developed deep expertise in areas like healthcare through companies like Recursion or Exsentia, or the latest AI unicorn in France, Alkin, quantum computing, or self-driving technology like Waymo. I think our key differentiator at Mubadala Capital is our ability to accompany founders on the long run through both access to capital, but not only through what we call the sovereign access, which is more on the commercial side, trying to bring those technology into practice. And I think these characteristics are particularly relevant to and for deep tech founders that look for patient and lifecycle investor to help them accomplish their vision. That's why I'm really honored to be here and on the stage with Catherine and Emil, who are revolutionizing precision medicine at BIOS Health by both reading and writing neural code, which we're excited to talk about today. So as a quick introduction, Catherine is the ATI program manager at BIOS. She will tell us a bit more about what ATI stands for in a second, but she's been around the tech startup world for quite a while and through different facets, from software engineering to prototyping and project management, and she really embodies what a deep tech operator is. Emil is the co-founder of BIOS. He co-founded BIOS in Cambridge in 2015 while finishing his PhD in computational neuroscience. He was named 30 under 30 by Forbes a few years ago and has been in the deep tech space since he was 17. That doesn't make you younger, right?
Yeah, no.
So I'd like to start by acknowledging that over the last 2 years, we've hit a crisis, and I think we've really realized the importance even more of investing in deep tech early. So, Emil, what are the biggest trends you're seeing in deep tech at the moment?
Thanks, Virgile. Yeah, so I think the reason we're really excited to have this conversation with Virgile from Mubadala is because we think there are types of investors that are finally understanding the opportunity in deep tech in Europe. Because to some extent, the main point about deep tech is it's a global opportunity. It's a global market, it's global problems, and it's globally sourced technologies. And having started my career in this more than 15 years ago, the technology development is rich in Europe. But there's always been this sort of lack of an understanding, both from the operator and investor side, how to translate that into commercial success. A early deep tech company looks just riskier than an easy bet on SaaS. But deep tech companies represent the vast majority of your sort of $5 to $100 billion outcomes that you could find. And there are as many here in Europe as there are in the US. So what we're seeing in terms of the ecosystem is we're both growing up, both sides, the operator side and the investor side. And the platforms that invest as investors, the ones that are able to take that risk with the operators of deep tech companies, to think about the market risk and the technology maturing, to be at the right time, to make real impact with a unique technology, are the ones that seem to be winning. So just to take one example, which is really in our domain, you gave that example of the kind of recent crises around climate and health. Think about Moderna. Moderna was a platform technology company. It needed a lot of sponsorship to figure out how to essentially write and edit parts of our genome, our DNA. That bet was something that was, prior to the pandemic, struggling to prove itself. But suddenly it became the one reason that we could print a solution to a huge problem. And the only two things that are certain about the future are there are many more problems coming, but there are many more technologies that we're incubating here. And so we think in healthcare is a really fertile ground for these next generation solutions. And we think neural is a huge new wave for precision medicine, and it requires that deep tech approach.
So there are major forces at work in the healthcare space. If we double tap on that, we're talking precision, we're talking use of data, use of AI to biology. So why do you think that neural is this next frontier in medicine?
Yeah. So again, if you think about healthcare is it's transforming because we need to transform it. We've got populations living longer, humongous amounts of spending going into the healthcare system, and technology is offering us a chance to get more precise, more personalized, more efficient, more seamless. And the traditional role of AI and data has been to take the sort of very slow process of how we discover new solutions, like new medicines, and try to speed that up. And then also take the process of delivering healthcare and the way in which you as a person experience your healthcare and make that more seamless and more accessible and more affordable for more people. Those are still built on fundamental platforms. And for the past 30 years, we've been cashing in on sort of two big platforms that currently exist. So one is the genomic sequencing technologies that were pioneered, that gave us a way to read a big part of our biology and to understand how to make new medicines and how to make treatment more precise. And the other platform is this prevalence of consumer electronics that allows us to kind of touch the consumer better, and also copying some of these sort of enterprise technologies in healthcare. But the next big speed up will come when you unlock a whole new platform, and neural has the same promise as DNA has in terms of completely changing the game in terms of the entire precision space from discovery to treatment.
And so for us to be more grounded and better understand the neural aspect, let's maybe go back in time a bit and understand the journey that DNA went through and understand how it got to where it is today and how we can correlate that to where neural is.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think let's think about the problem that existed that still broadly exists in healthcare that meant that DNA needed to be found. We as a population, as we live longer, as we have more sort of complex lifestyles, we struggle to stay healthy. And for a while, there were a number of major killers. There was cancers, which were becoming a huge problem in the developed world. There were sort of rare diseases that we didn't know how to treat. And then there was this ever-increasing burden of chronic disease. And the issue was these were problems that all felt too big to solve. The discovery of DNA started off in a very sort of purist scientific pursuit, saying what are we made out of? And many decades ago, actually in Cambridge, where we're based, the structure of DNA was sort of discovered. Then, after a number of years, people created the tools and the technologies to access that structure, to sequence the genome, to learn how to read this. But like every sort of data pursuit, that we're now learning, in lots of industries, access to data only becomes useful when you turn it into insight. So for the past 25 years, there's been this global effort to match the understandings in DNA to insights about diseases and drugs and to break problems apart. And it finally succeeded in a number of areas of cancer and a number of areas of rare diseases, where we could understand what is it unique about you, and maybe how else can we find people who are similar to make a drug or a medicine for you. And this is great, except for the fact that 2/3 of the diseases we're still struggling from. The thing that will make healthcare unaffordable in the long run and prevent us from spending on all the other impacts that humanity needs to manage by itself are chronic diseases. So 1 in 3 of us in this room will die of heart disease. We haven't found a solution since like 1969, since the moon landings. So we need to take the same approach and break this up into smaller pieces, make them more precise, and then develop new treatments. And so we have a playbook to copy from DNA, but frankly, your DNA does not inform you about how your particular progression through arthritis or heart disease or diabetes is going in a way where a new medicine could be found that just works for you. And so the current problem is that we know what we could do, and therefore we spend a lot of money on cancer and rare disease. But right now, the economics are just not there for the biggest diseases in the world. So with heart disease, you get 10,000 to 1 failure rate. You lose hundreds of millions of dollars on trials, so no one develops solutions. And so the hope that we found about 30 years ago as a scientific community was realizing that in the way that DNA is this sort of instruction manual that the body uses for your entire life, is that your brain and your nerves are a sort of internet connection and a sort of little mini computer that's keeping you healthy every second of every day of your life. So if we can make that precise, if we can understand that in real time very seamlessly, we can suddenly break apart the understanding of these kind of diseases too. And so frankly, getting at that understanding with new technologies like AI will then let you, play the same playbook, but on bigger diseases that are actually more impactful in the long run. And so we're kind of combining the playbook of the DNA pioneers, luckily faster, because we now can do it with AI and data, and with an industry that understands precision medicine now.
Great. So maybe that's a good segue to understanding a bit better what you guys are building at BIOS. And so, Catherine, can you help us understand a bit more what are those neural digital therapies that you're building?
Of course. Our vision for neural digital therapies is, that got louder, any therapy that takes insight from the nervous system in real time. There are so many neurally mediated diseases, some of which can't be treated at all, and some are treated fairly imprecisely with drugs. And we're developing the capabilities to fundamentally change the way people live with these chronic diseases. We're doing that in two ways. The first way Emil alluded to is through software therapies, through being able to read and write neural code in real time. We can identify neural biomarkers to understand these diseases even more, and also the language of the nervous system. So we can program and deliver software therapies to target them more effectively. Secondly, we are improving traditional pharma therapies. If we can see what's happening inside an individual in response to drugs, we can profile patients more effectively, target drugs more effectively, and ultimately deliver better therapies. So I would say neural digital therapies are leveling up precision medicine. We're building better drugs and developing a whole new treatment platform via software.
And so you alluded to it a few minutes ago, but so your first program is in heart diseases, and you gave some of the reason as to why this is such an important. Catherine, anything you want to add on what Emil already said, and maybe focus what seems to be really a key thing for BIOS, which is the improving the patient experience?
Yeah, of course. Heart disease is the #1 global cause of death. It is a neurally mediated disease, so it's something we can address. And something else I was going to say, Virgile.
Maybe let's focus on the patient experience.
Yeah. At the moment, symptoms of heart disease really negatively affect people's quality of life. The symptoms include feeling very tired, feeling breathless even when you're lying down, very swollen. It's a really horrible thing to live with. We haven't really had any pharma breakthroughs since the 70s with the advent of the beta blocker. And the current treatments are sort of complex cocktails of drugs with side effects that need to be moderated frequently. So something's not working. We need a whole new approach. And this is how we see a neural digital therapy. So a patient will be given a smart implant, a bit like a pacemaker, that can communicate directly with your nervous system to repair, inform neural signals, so clinicians can treat conditions more accurately, more effectively, more responsively. So you're functionally curing people of a chronic disease.
And I think this is a real trend that we're seeing, which is the ability to deliver care remotely by having these implants to target those diseases directly. That's hugely in trend with
I'd say just to pick up on a few things you guys just kind of highlighted. So, for us, as the big picture, has been that you can use the nervous system as a new form of precision. And so there's many ways this is similar to DNA in that you can read and you can write. And as Catherine mentioned, reading out signals, it's just like optimizing normal medicines. That's an awesome benefit that people can have. But the really unexpected benefit is that it's actually much easier to write neural code than it is to write to DNA. So with Moderna, they're using RNA, they're editing bits of DNA on the fly, but it's really hard to get right. It's also really hard to get that editing, that writing right on the neural code, but you can do it in software and electronics. And so the more that you're interacting, the more that you have access to digital technologies that people are wearing on their bodies or putting inside them that can pick up electrical signals, the more that you're getting infrastructure that's being invested in already that lets you access the nervous system. So people aren't yet shipping at-home DNA sequencers, but people are already shipping a form of at-home nervous system sequencer. It's really interesting, right? So when you think about all the investments that have suddenly happened in remote healthcare, the number one thing that happens is that clinicians get patients to take wearables home and to take other forms of quantification home. And the interesting aspect that suddenly unlocked in the industry, and actually an opportunity for the neural therapies industry to suddenly just balloon, is that now you can almost guarantee in many of the more integrated healthcare markets that you could get real-time signals on organ performance from someone who has a major disease. And that suddenly opens up the ability to provide this background insight saying, well, if that's what all the organs are doing, we can now tell you what your nervous system is doing and give you that personalized neural sequence on top of that infrastructure. And so that's why that first benefit of precision just rolls out as fast as remote health rolls out, which is really cool. And then the second aspect is that then as the sort of really major grand challenge problems, like the lack of any medicine for essentially 30% of all humans, at the end stages of their disease rolls out, suddenly you can take slightly more niche pieces of technology, things that were developed by the Medtronics of the world 60 years ago, and start to write software for that too. And you suddenly get this whole supply chain of infrastructure for neural therapy. That's the unexpected development of tech.
Yeah, it's as if adding that layer of neural will benefit the entire ecosystem from patient delivery, but also helping on, improving rates of success on clinical trials by just leveraging more data than what already was available in the past. This is fantastic. So where is BIOS right now on that heart program? Can you give us a bit of a...
Maybe you should talk about some of our partners, actually, if you want to...
Yeah, we've had a pretty big year. I would say the last year we've said, on heart disease, and we've already surpassed the state-of-the-art for reading neural data in that field. And we've developed some really exciting partnerships. So we're working with the National Institute of Health in the US. They're using our platform to analyze neural data. We are working with neural and cardiac physiology experts at the University of Oxford, and also with the NHS, who are trialing our remote health platform to monitor the health of patients with primary hypertension. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot more to come.
Yeah, and I guess for us it's really exciting because we spent the first 6 years of the company's existence being this deep tech company saying, can we automate the reading and writing of the neural code? Because we think it will be as impactful as genomics. And thinking it will be as impactful as something is great. But the next transition for us is knowing what that product is to all the people out there, which is these neural digital therapies. And over the past year, thanks to Catherine and the team that Catherine leads alongside my co-founder Ollie, they have proven the technology works on the best, the global forum, right? The NIH is funding essentially the human nervous system mapping program, and our technology is the core of that mapping. As found that the leaders in science around the biggest disease in the world who've been pioneering the research for 20 years and given them for the first time a tool that is giving results. And then finally, we've now figured out a method of partnering with those sort of unexpected participants like the sort of tech companies. The expected participants, like the NHS, the caregivers, and then honestly the big budget holders, which is the pharma companies that are looking for ways to develop stuff faster and have types of products that will be there once they run out of solutions that are normal drugs. And so that huge transition has been really cool for us over the past year.
And you were mentioning right before we go on the stage that you were also partnering with NVIDIA on those kind of programs, and I think it speaks to the deep relationship between deep tech as a whole, those technology players, and then like healthcare pioneers like yourself. which is like pushing
Yeah.
and probably, defines also a new sort of investors that need to have
Completely.
understanding from both sides, because it's not so much only life science or only technology, it's the intersection of the
agreed.
of
Like,
the
yeah,
two.
and there's this huge trend which you guys are really in front of with a lot of your investments, which is instead of saying biotech, you say tech bio, right? It's kind of the word that's kind of going on around the field at the moment. And that's actually an understanding that there is a position for platforms. These platforms are ones that have a lot of technology behind them. So we are standing on the shoulders of decades of investment in speeding up AI and accelerating that, which NVIDIA is the leader in a real sense. Decades of investment in access to data and understanding it and sort of translating the AI insights that have been around. Decades of investment by our partners and collaborators in understanding the biology linked to all of these things. And that's the reality of these deep tech opportunities, which is if you can work with partners who all have ultimately an aligned mission, which is to make real impact, really outsized impact. Like we care about solving a multi-trillion-dollar problem, which means that the businesses that win will be $10 to $100 billion businesses. Then there's plenty of as long as you can get that ecosystem to work, there is an incentive and there's finally a possibility to make a return. Which is frankly, what matters when you change a field like this. And I think again, healthcare is a great example of the first section there, because way before Moderna, which has figured out, given us the tools just at the right time to at least slightly control this pandemic. The original player that everyone looks up to is Genentech, that figured out how to do that with training bacterium to make insulin for us, and that was a $100 billion outcome. That doesn't happen in SaaS, right? And in deep tech, we're moving into this place where your confluence of AI, really invested technology platforms, and the right kind of investors and the right kind of commercial partners will find, there's probably going to be 40, 50 Genentechs coming out of Europe in the next 10, 20 years, and they won't all be in healthcare, but there'll be these massive platform outcomes.
So if we go back to BIOS a bit more, and I'm going to be a bit might sound a bit of a caricature, but in this neural future, will that mean that your doctor will kind of prescribe you an algorithm rather than writing you a prescription for a pill? Is that how you envision healthcare in the future?
Yeah, entirely. I think that's it's sort of. I think that's a good outcome. So the future. If we realize that our body runs on neural code, right? And our body runs on this evolved neural software that's there in the background. So our body is already running on a kind of weird biological, very hard to understand bit of code. The best way to be looking after your health is to be constantly aware of when that code is off for how you are, and to be able to have those kind of conversations with your doctor. And for your doctor's sort of primary job to not be, actually, why don't we just wait for 2 years and see how wrong this inaccurate code is going, and then try and come in at the end. Make these really subtle but continuous and personal interventions. And so it actually, and there's a very real example, which is that if someone had this sort of this pacemaker-like product that was managing their health after the point where all the drugs stopped working, the moment the next discovery happens, whether it's in Japan or other side of the world in North America or wherever it is, that update, that discovery becomes a software update, and you download it. Your doctor says, "Look, you are just right for this new discovery that's been made somewhere." You have it, and the whole community can start to give you those updates. And so then there's a hugely interesting future there, because essentially, $50-60 trillion of chronic disease spending could actually get more affordable, so it could become a $1 trillion software market. And the products could be more like a Spotify subscription for health. Give me the playlist that is good for Virgile, right? And there'll be some really common mega stars that will like the beta blocker, which is software says give Virgile a normal medicine. There'll be then the really niche stuff, which is like, oh, actually, there's something that could work just for you that will just get you right in the mood. And that's the cool bit about working with our nervous system, is we're working with software.
Yeah. It's there's almost no manufacturing involved with it as well, right? So in terms of lowering costs.
If you think about it, luckily, again, in terms of standing on the shoulders of giants, the consumer electronics industry, the power that's in your telephone, is vastly more powerful than what we need to unlock this, right? And again, in terms of the risk of putting in products into your body, the amazing pioneers in the medical device industry, which really haven't shown great commercial returns, but have taken on enormous risks in the name of humanity and science, have figured out how to put some stuff in us, and then the tech companies like Apple, etc., are figuring out how to give us beautiful sensors that we choose to wear every day. So all the hardware is there. The very hard part is that biology is incredibly complex, and so the next journey is to map all this sensing ability and all this sort of computing ability to the first few insights, right? To go to a bit of the language, which could be frankly hundreds of years exercise of writing code for our health. But the low-hanging fruit is just so enormous.
And so you mentioned heart disease is the first.
Yeah.
Where do you think it could also have a deeper impact?
So I think for us, our mission is to make an impact in people's lives and improve healthcare as fast as possible, but then provide this sort of infrastructure for lots more discoveries to happen. The way we kind of square the circles, we focus on chronic diseases. So we see loads of promise in inflammation, so disorders like arthritis or autoimmune diseases where your body is attacking itself, like Crohn's disease, because we know there's a strong neural pathway there. Actually, the way your lungs function is you're subconsciously telling yourself to breathe. And actually, the sort of the emergence of COVID has suddenly created a lot more people who are struggling to run that pathway. So chronic diseases of all types have huge potential for impact. And alongside investing in our own program, we're now at the position where we're talking to partners about spinning up ones in that area. But frankly, then the long-term legacy of neurodigital therapies, of which we're trying to be a leading and trusted tool provider for and are pioneering, that legacy will spread all the way through the forms of any form of health that's touched by your nervous system. And I think that you can think about the fact that it takes so long to pioneer these chronic disease drugs as the foothills, the very valuable foothills of pioneering all forms of medicine for your nerves and ultimately your brain.
I mean, this is fascinating. Just before we close this off, you mentioned Moderna quite a bit, and how is that as an example from more of a how they operate their business, from their business model?
Yep.
How is that inspiring for the new age biotechs or tech
it's super inspiring because for us, and again, this has been like the bet of deep tech is you bet on the technology and you bet on what the market model would be. And a company like Moderna is fundamentally a platform bio business. And what that means is one platform technology, lots of parallel programs, each of which could be $1 billion or $10 billion outcome as a company. So for us, we and the tech bio community can use tech as a new form of platform that's actually more scalable and become a business that's valuable because we have all these different therapies dependent on our core technology. And we look like the tech version of what a pharma company was before, but ideally with a better set of incentives to reduce overall cost of care, have way more access for our technologies, but to be valued by the market like your Exscientia deal, but with unlike generic AI tech, with a unique modality that we're linked to.
Yeah. I mean, Catherine, Emil, what you guys are building at BIOS is really inspiring. I'm going to speak for me, but I'm sure for a lot of people, even in the scientific community, but it feels like the nervous system has been for a long time kind of a black box that we couldn't really map. And the fact that you're trying to crack it and you're trying to learn how to decode and encode is really fascinating. You and I have been talking for a few months now about the impact of neural, and I'm really glad that we got to share a glimpse of all of that with the audience and the streamers. And I just want to finish on the fact that really what excites us as investors in deep tech is both the ability to back life-changing technologies, but also really differentiated science. And so deep tech isn't consumer, as you said. It takes time to get it right. It takes time to get the right investors, the right partners to help you, achieve what the super bold vision that you guys are trying, pushing the frontier of medicine. And I'm really, really glad to see more and more funds trying to switch their fund structure, get away from the 10-year lifetime to actually also allow entrepreneurs to also deliver on that deep tech mission, which I'm sure will benefit the entire ecosystem. So I really want to thank you all for staying for the last chat of the day. I hope it wasn't too difficult to follow at 4 p.m. on a Friday. I think everyone is looking forward to the weekend. And thank you to Hello Tomorrow for hosting us and for hosting this event. I'm really proud as a Parisian to have it in the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you.